Okay, so let's talk about this question a little more specifically. Um, so -2, 0, um, written in brackets like this, when it's called an interval, is just talking about the x values. Okay, and then this is what do average rates of change of the function, um, what are they? Well, y equals absolute value of x plus 2 is the function. The intervals are the x values that we're going to look at. Um, let's graph the function. Now I actually know how to have the calculator on the screen for you while it's recording. Okay, so let's just graph the function to specifically talk more about this one. Um, so the equation is y equals absolute value of x plus 2. The way you get absolute value on this calculator, you hit the math button. You got to go over to the number column where it says ABS. That's absolute value. And whatever I type inside there is in the absolute value bars. So it's just the x. And then plus 2. All right, so let's graph that. All right, so that's your function. The interval from -2 to 0 is an x value of -2 to an x value of 0. So what we're really doing is we're seeing what's the average rate of change between -2 and 0. When I calculate it, it should be negative, right? Because it's going down from an x value of -2 to an x value of 0. The function is going down. The whole function is not just doing that. But for the interval that we're talking about, -2 to 0, it's going down. So let's do the work for that. So again, when x is -2, the question is, what's the y value? So it's y equals absolute value of -2 plus 2. Absolute value of -2 is 2, and plus 2 makes it 4. So the ordered pair when x is -2 is -2, 4. For 0, again, that's an x value when it's an interval. So let's talk about an x value of 0. We're going to substitute 0 into the function. Y is equal to absolute value of 0 plus 2. Absolute value of 0 is 0, so y is equal to 2. So the ordered pair would be 0, 2. The average rate of change for this interval is the slope between these 2 points. Okay, so slope, remember, the formula for that would be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. In other words, it's the change in y over the change in x. So if this is your x1, and this is your y1, this is your x2, and this is your y2, I'm just plugging those coordinates into the slope formula to find my average rate of change. So 2 minus 4, y2 minus y1, over x2 minus x1. So 0 minus a -2, so plus 2. So you end up with -2 over 2, which is -1. So the average rate of change for that part is -1, which again makes sense based on our graph because between -2 and 0 as an x value, it's going down. The next interval, let's talk about that one with a different color. The next interval, 0 to 3, has an x value of 0. So this part is my first, I don't need to redo that, right? It's the same. 0 ended the first interval and it begins the second interval. So I already have that information done. Now I just need to figure out when it's an x value of 3, what's the y value, right? So it's y is equal to absolute value of 3 plus 2. Absolute value of 3 is 3, so 3 plus 2 is 5. So the ordered pair would be 3, 5. The average rate of change for the interval 0 to 3 is going to be the slope between that point and that point. So I'm going to do the same work. 5 minus 2 over 3 minus 0. You end up with 3 over 3, which equals 1. Okay, when I go and look at the graph, that makes sense, right? From an x value of 0 to an x value of 3, so like that part of the function, it's going up with a slope of 1. What that can also tell you, when it says what does that indicate about the function, since you have different rates of change, average rates of change for different intervals of the function, that means it's not a line, it's not linear. Well, kind of knew that by looking at it, but yeah, that's not a line. So that's just the confirmation that that's true. If we found the average rate of change between -2 and 3, we'd just be using this ordered pair and this ordered pair, right? An x value of -2 to an x value of 3. What's the average rate of change between an x value of 2 and an x value of 3? It goes down and up. So the average rate of change is actually going to go up slightly from -2 to 3. When I figure out the slope between those 2 points, it'd be 5 minus 4 over 3 minus -2, so 3 plus 2. It ends up being 1 over 5, which is slightly positive, which is, when you look at the graph, that makes sense. From an x value of 2, it's here, an x value of 3, it's here. It's a little higher at 3 than it is at -2, so it, as an average, it went up. It went down and up, but as an average, at the end, it ended a little higher than it started, right? So that's why your average rate of change is slightly positive there. Okay, hope that helped. Let me know if you have other questions.